So here's my degree. It costs a full $60,000 Canadian. And in today's video, we're gonna go through my entire student loan payoff plan in 5 steps. So Americans on average owe about $38,000 on their student loans. And interestingly enough, most of the borrowers actually default on student loans under $40,000. Now, I had a student loan of somewhere around $60,000 and I paid it all off. So how I paid it off is a very applicable strategy to most American student loan borrowers. And 60K Canadian dollars of student loans for me, because I'm Canadian, is about 45K in US. So I remember my first day in college. I was bushy-eyed and I was taking the 145 bus, the production way bus to SFU, Simon Fraser University. And I remember it vividly because back then I had no money whatsoever. So textbooks, tuition, bus passes, mandatory gym memberships, insurances, that was all taken care of by student loans. And what I thought back then was that there was all these scholarships, but I always thought that I wasn't a smart kid and only smart kids get scholarships. Well, that is such a false belief. And if you're a student right now, please be sure to go look to see if there's any scholarships that you're eligible for. Because many of them, they don't even look at your scores. You know, there are scholarships for low-income students, which I was, but I didn't know that there are such opportunities, so I never took advantage of them. But now that you know that, please be sure to take advantage of them because that's free money to help you pay for student debt that you will have a lot of and you will need to pay off somehow. So taking the bus to school was the highest leverage activity that I ever did because when I left Canada and came to the US, I had to buy a car. And then I realized how expensive it was to actually own a car. I mean, there are gas costs, there's maintenance costs, there's insurance costs. All of that added up was worth more than the value of my car right now because Kelley Blue Book says that my car is worth somewhere around $400. So I think that the number one thing that you can do when it comes to paying off any student loans, if you have a car, just sell it, get some money for it, and put it into your loan. And just take transit or public transport if you have public transport in your area. So throughout university and for a year after that, I just lived with my parents in order to just save money on rent. And that was all for the purposes of paying off my student debt. And I know it's hard because you see your friends going out there living alone and having fun getting roommates. But while they show them having a lot of fun on their reels, on their stories, what you don't see is the amount of debt that they shoulder. So my number 2 advice for paying off your student loans is just mooch off your parents. Hate to say it, but mooch off your parents, let them know the situation. It's gonna save you 1 to 2K of rent and you're gonna pay off your student loans quicker. So the great thing about Asian parents is that they want to feed you. They want you to mooch. And if you find yourself in that situation, then what you wanna do is you wanna eat their food. So even back in my student days, I would decline all invites to eat out because I knew how expensive it was to go and eat out compared to eating at home, which is parent funded. And even now, I still avoid eating out just because of how expensive things have gotten with inflation. I mean, after a $30 meal, you're still hungry. So my 3rd and 4th strategy of paying off student loans is literally to mooch off your parents and stop eating out. So if you stuff your ego and do all of the things that we talked about, you should find light at the end of the tunnel, no matter how shameless it seems. But my last tip, tip number 5, it's gonna be a banger. And that tip is to get a job that pays at least $50,000 per year. After tax, that will only be $40K. By doing that, you will by default save a lot, because what you did is you made a huge change in your lifestyle. First, you got rid of the car, so there's not going to be any more insurance, gas, maintenance costs with that. Second, you're living with your parents now, so you're saving a lot on rent, let's say 1 to 2K. On top of that, number 3 is you're mooching off them on their food. It's shameless, I know, but bro, you got debt to pay off. And number 4, you say no to all invitations to going to restaurants because they're expensive, and after paying like $50 for a meal, you're still hungry. And guys, I know that not everyone can do this. There are parents and children who have strange relationships with each other. Luckily, I wasn't one of those kids with a bad relationship with their parents. And on the other hand, there are just people that have huge egos and they don't want to be shameless on mooching off their parents. But during the time I was paying off my student debt, I had really one focus, and that was to pay off my student debt, because I didn't want this student loan to hang over my head for the rest of my life or for a long time. What I wanted to do was I wanted to get rid of it so I could start my life. And my parents let me do that. So what I did is I focused 100% of my efforts into paying off that debt, and guess what? I did. So guys, that's the entire strategy. It's not rocket science. If you want to learn how you compare to other millennials in terms of debt, please be sure to check out the video that I made here.